Martin, at this fixture, I mean, it's a fixture you know so well. You played in so many. What is different about it for you as a player?
I think what it means to that North London, the fans, both enormous clubs, aren't they, throughout the world, 60,000 stadiums, both of them. Arsenal re-emerging, Spurs with what I feel is a top-level manager. You know, what is it, 5 top? He's won 4 Scuderas or whatever you call it in Italy. He's won a Premier League here.
Scudettos, yeah.
Scudettos. I think he's a top man, and he really is a connoisseur on his system. It's an interesting week, actually. For those of us looking at tactics and England, and is it a 5, is it a 4? Well, this man Conte plays with 3 at the back, 4 in midfield and 3 up top. And he really does know. He's a black belt, Jim, in this system. He knows it. He's like a connoisseur of this system, knows it inside out. I don't know, actually, if he knows the 4-3-3 as well. If you remember, he was at Chelsea and he didn't work for him and he changed it, needed to. So he understands it well and he gives that message to his players that every single one of those players knows their job responsibility. But they have 3 really outstanding forward players. Kulusevski could be missing this one, which would be good news for Arsenal. Obviously, Son now got that hat-trick last time out, looking really good. But I've been really immensely impressed with Arsenal this season. It's a different Arsenal. To go to Brentford and win as they did, emphatically, every compartment of the team really did well. They almost bullied Brentford, played them at their own game, really. And if you think back to 12 months ago, how that was a terrible start for Arsenal against Brentford. So, Jim, Arsenal really going through the gears. So this one is really difficult to call. But the Spurs players who walk into that stadium tomorrow at the Emirates will see something very different. It's a unified ground now with the fans and players. They totally 100% believe in this team. It's an electricity they wouldn't have noticed or played against before. And Arsenal have a momentum. And they're winning games. They're going after teams. They're not sitting back. They're doing what maybe the Invincibles would have done or the early Arsenal teams. It's a return to an Arsenal team that we once knew. But standing in their way is a really outstanding manager with a really well-oiled team.
Tottenham walk in there tomorrow and they're unbeaten in the Premier League.
Correct. As our Man City. Only 2 teams. I watch out for every year, Jim.
I mean, the momentum, you would think, Stuart's with Tottenham, but Stuart, I know you want to pick this fella up.
Yeah, I want to pick Martin's brains here. I mean, this one, how do you see this one? Do you see 2 teams that are on an even par at the moment? Because in your day playing for Arsenal, Tottenham are always the underdog in the main, from memory, and they're always trying to chip away and get a point off you to stifle your title charge, if you like. Nowadays, slightly different. Do you think there's an even par of the teams?
It's as even as I can remember it.
Yes.
Ever.
Yeah.
Both 2 clubs. They're a long way. I mean, I feel that this would be a huge disappointment for Spurs if they weren't to win a trophy. This is the best Spurs squad I've seen in years. I mean, Basuma comes off the bench now. He'd probably be... You'd like to look at it. I mean, he might play tomorrow if they want to go with a 3. Because Conte, when he was at Inter Milan and he was at Juventus, preferred to play with 2 strikers and 3 midfield players. So he has that option. But I felt whenever we played in these games, it was one about not playing with your heart, play it with your head.
For sure.
Because all around you, there's a storm, the fans, the noise. I mean, the Sol Campbell game when we rocked up back at was just something like I've never, ever witnessed or seen. All the windows went in through the coach as we pulled up. It was just the
with
team,
you and Campbell on that
but
coach.
the team responded, and it was really the making of Sol. Sol was like a train, slowed to get out of the station. Once he was gone, you couldn't stop him. And that
what happened that day?
That's when it started.
The coach is pitching up, and then they start launching stones and bricks.
You name it, it all came through the windows, and there was just almost like a mini riot, and it was kind of almost like we were having to get up to defend ourselves, and that team was prepared to do that. Because it didn't seem like the police were doing very much to help us that day. But when you look at some of those games, I've seen it all. But what we're seeing now is the closest these 2 clubs have ever been, and that's really when there's more.
Martin,
on it than
a few
ever before.
people picking you up though. Martin Keown comparing this Arsenal side to the Invincibles has to be the funniest thing I've heard all week. Arsenal are still behind Spurs, and the one semi-decent team they've played, they lost.
Yeah, but the thing is that these guys are now building a reputation. That was something that doesn't happen overnight. Like when I remember standing in the tunnel, people were looking at Vieira and Manu Petit and saying, "Oh, it's over before it starts." Well, that took a long time. By the time that team from '97 through to went unbeaten 2004, it was about building reputations. Okay, now they're building it again.
Yeah, and
everyone thought it was a soft underbelly. Well, that's not quite there anymore. If you look at those 2 central defenders, Saliba, Gabriel, tough men, strong, win the battles. Even Xhaka now is becoming a fan's favourite. Who would have thought that was going to happen?
Who would have thought that? You're right.
So there's a change taking
Who's
place.
in the best trajectory, Stuart, of the two of them?
Well, I think Arsenal's fixtures have been very favourable. As you mentioned, they played one of the blue chip teams and got beat, which is, no disaster, but away from home. So I think Arsenal are playing the better football out of the two. I've not seen Arsenal live this year, but I've seen Spurs live, and I've been a little bit underwhelmed, if I'm being honest with you. I think they've got some really good results, but I think they've been a little bit disappointing. The Marseille at home game, for a start, it was probably the sending off that's changed the game of the Marseille player, and all of a sudden the game changes. And to be fair, I've been a little bit disappointed. I think they're getting over the line by sheer organisation from the manager and a little bit of stardust with players that can get a goal out of nothing.
I mean, what do you make of Glenn Hoddle's comments going into this one? Should style of play matter? If you're getting results, should style of play matter? Hoddle says, it's okay while it's going well, but I'm going to be quite controversial here and say that I can't see too much of a difference between the way Mourinho set the team up and how Conte sets Tottenham up. Spurs fans weren't having Mourinho, but Mourinho was top of the league after a few games. They're playing with a handbrake on a bit.
I agree with Glenn in many ways. I've sat in that stadium this season at Tottenham, and I thought the way the team are playing at the moment, very organised and whatever, but they're not playing well. Let's not kid ourselves. They're not playing well within the games, in my opinion.
But they're getting results. Does it matter?
But the fans are not getting wriggly with it. Sometimes at Tottenham they can be quite vocal.
But there's a thing called, don't you think there's this belief element plays a big part? And I just feel there's a belief there now. They're very patient. Conte is in charge of that team, not the other way around. They're asked to sit. Every single one of those players has to get behind the ball when they defend.
For sure.
And there are times in the games, Leicester got beat 6-2. And I tell you now, if you look at that from a tactical point of view, there were periods in that game when you thought Leicester were getting in behind their midfield too, with the wide players coming in off the line. And it was a problem for Spurs. And they didn't seem to know how to manage it. And you thought, the manager will change, he'll panic. No. He just makes them a little bit more compact. And he knows with three players up the top of the pitch, at some point, we will cause damage.
Actually, get into this, Martin. It's interesting. Conte's been talking, but he's been talking a lot about Arsenal and how well that they're doing.
For sure, Arsenal had a fantastic start. They lost only one game against United. And then they are showing to be a really good team. I think that in the summer they made good sign for them and improved the team. That, don't forget, last season in the last 3 games they were 4 points up than us. It means that we are talking about a really good team, that in the last season we did a really good job to overcome them in the last 3 games. But at the same time, I know the quality of this team. I know that they are working with Arteta for many years. They are really well organized. Arteta, I said last season that for me is a really good coach.
So he's talking up Arsenal and he's talking up Arteta, but it boils down to this, Martin Stewart. Arsenal, Tottenham can either represent themselves as outside title contenders.
Well, they already are, aren't they? I mean, at the end of the day, what was third versus top? So, everything's been northwest over the recent years, and Liverpool will respond. And Man City are the team, aren't they? The benchmark. So both those teams know that they need to, get points on the board to try and stay into that top 4. Whether they challenge, I think City will be too good for these two, but who's going to be the next one? And you don't want it to be your rivals. You don't want Tottenham to be the next team that takes this opportunity that could land itself. So, I think it's these are two managers. One of them, as I said before, won lots of trophies, and one sort of young pretender. It was interesting the last time they played. I think being mischievous here now, Jim, learning from you, working in this job. Arteta was told to concentrate, stop moaning, get on with your game and stop complaining about everything by Conte last time they met. Well, he's done that, hasn't he? He's gone away, he's bought new players, he's top of the table, and they meet again. So there's a healthy rivalry. I wouldn't really be listening about the, pat on the back from my rival in the opposite dugout. Yeah, that's very nice, thanks very much, but I'm concentrating solely on my team, as you told me to do last year.
But you think both are title contenders?
I want to beat you today.
Both of them. Do you agree with that, Stuart?
I think they're both title contenders by default in some ways. And I'll quantify that by saying Liverpool have had a shaky start for them. Chelsea, question marks with them.
Big change,
Manchester United, question marks with them. So all of a sudden you've stripped away 3 of the blue chip teams and think, you're off the pace at the moment. What does that do? Man City are fully at it by the looks of it, and Haaland firing well. But that throws Arsenal and Tottenham in the mix to be title contenders. I think maybe a little bit by default. This weekend might give us a bit of guidance about which one of those two are real contenders.
So go for it. Who wins this? Who wins it, Stuart?
On what I've seen form-wise, I think I can't see Spurs winning the game. I cannot. The best I can see them getting is a point. Arsenal are playing the better football. I would say Arsenal.
Well, I'm going to go with Arsenal as well, but a betting man tells me a draw. This is a very pragmatic manager. Conte finds a way to get a result, but Arsenal are more artistic and there's flowing and there's free. I just feel that Arsenal could be a moment of brilliance somewhere. We've got to disrupt that back three, Jim. It's too nice. No one ever really gets at that back three for Spurs. Drag them out.
That back three's a back five with a couple in front of it and 3 forwards sat in nice and compact, as you said. That's the way they play, yeah.
Oh, well. I can't wait, actually. You've set it up beautifully, both of you. Arsenal, Tottenham, 12:30, live and exclusive tomorrow on talkSPORT.
Jim White and Simon Jordan. Monday to Friday mornings from 10 on AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.